Today on the Hangout, the Raptors stumble and fall in the third and fourth, but they make it to the second round. The Spurs get the Rockets in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs, and Larry leaves. What's next for the Pacers? Hangout! Basketball fans, welcome into Canada's home for Talkin' Hoops. I am Akil Augustine, and this is the Hangout. We are coming to you from 307 Lakeshore for yet another episode, and guess who's here? Dan Gladman, fresh off of the red-eye back from Milwaukee after a huge Raptors win. Thank you for being such a diligent worker and making it to work today.
Well, you know, my heart finally started beating again this morning, so the first thing I did was come to your show. All
right, well, it's our show, and we'll get into it later, of course. Kayla Marie, the first lady of the couch. How you living, lady?
Doing great, doing great. My heartbeat is back to normal now, too, after last night, so it's happy to be here.
All right, and fam, of course, long time, one of our college basketball insiders, Amy Audibert. Amy, how you holding up?
Oh, great. It's playoff time.
Your heart good, though?
Yeah, I got over March Madness, and now we're in playoffs for the NBA. And
now it's Raptor Madness. Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a litmus test of everyone's emotions. We checked in with Dan. We checked in with Amy. What was the feeling during the fourth quarter of this Raptors game?
So right when the buzzer went off, one of my favorite coaches I've worked with this year kind of had the same win during her season, and what she said to me afterwards was, Amy, sometimes an ugly win is always better than a pretty loss. And that was the first thing I thought when the buzzer went off. But then I looked back and I said, it really wasn't an ugly win because they went up 25. And during
it got ugly though.
Played, but what are you holding on to moving forward? If they did not go up 25, they would have lost that game with the comeback. But because they were able to build that pocket, they still got the job done.
That worries me that they couldn't hold on to a 25-point lead against the Bucks. The final score 92 to 89. Kayla, let's get your thoughts and reaction. As a professional athlete, you spent some time playing pro volleyball. What would your team experience be like during a quarter like that?
Well, I'm curious as to what was said in those timeouts in the fourth quarter because, you know, DeMar post-game, you know, he said that they maintained their cool. They expected a run from the Bucks. Which
Not that run.
Right. Who really was expecting that, right? But at the same time, you know, they kept their composure to a certain degree. Granted, not giving them any kind of slack for letting go of that 25-point lead because that was ridiculous, in all honesty. Every person that was watching that game was like, what are we watching right now as they unraveled? But the story still remains the same, is that they kept it together towards the end of the stretch. There were a lot of big plays. Corey Joseph with that three.
A huge three.
Woo!
So Dan Gladman, the producer of the broadcast, we're all watching your work. I mean, is that the big takeaway, that they survived the run? Because a lot of people will look at that as, you can't compete with Cleveland if you lose a 25-point lead to the Bucks. But should the giant takeaway be they did lose that lead, but they were a good enough team to walk out of the building with the W?
Well, Cleveland blew a 25-point lead late in the regular season against Atlanta. It's something that happens in NBA games. The other team is trying very hard. I mean, for me, you know, once I got my heart out of my mouth in that situation and was able to think about it and put it all together, yeah, they had some struggles, and they can identify what those problems are. But when you talk about teams going on runs, we know they're going to go on a run. You're talking about a 9-2 run.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't know
it
this team had that
34-7. How that can happen, I have no idea. But the thing that I take from it, they fell, they lost the lead, and then they regained their composure. They went on a 9-2 run of their own. The Joseph shot, the dunk by DeRozan, and they were able to win the game. That's all that matters.
And those two things were off of Milwaukee mistakes. They left Corey Joseph wide open, didn't even stay on him, and then Thon Baker closing out, Thon Maker, sorry, closing out. I'm just pumped up. Yeah. Closing out, and DeRozan still attacking that top foot. Sure. That can't happen.
Well,
those were Milwaukee mistakes.
That can't happen. But Milwaukee was exhausted after making the comeback. Yeah, they did make a lot of. They're a young team, but they were also so tired after making that run.
Enough hindsight, guys. Let's look forward to what everyone thought would eventually be the Eastern Conference Championship Series. That's not what it is. It is the Eastern Conference Semifinal Series. Raptors versus Cleveland and LeBron. My question to you guys, with the new changes to the roster, we're talking about the addition of Tucker, the addition of Ibaka, can the Raptors compete, hang, possibly defeat the Cavaliers, Kayla?
Yes. I do believe that they can compete.
Okay.
Question.
Pick one of these three.
There was a couple of questions in there. Can they compete? Absolutely. Can they beat the Cavaliers?
Yes.
That is going to be the million-dollar question, obviously. And you know, I'm no mind reader. I can't see into the future.
We would like you to be, though. We would like you to be that.
Yeah. I would say though that the pieces that Coach Casey and staff brought in to make this team what it is right now, I think we have a much better chance than we did last year.
Yeah.
I will say that. But it's gonna be, it's gonna be a dogfight, no doubt about it. And a well-rested Cleveland now is watching and waiting and ready for game one.
And I think that's one of the problems too. You thought Cleveland would have probably got beat up. I was hoping the Pacers could push them to a few more games than just 4, but that was not the case. Amy, do you feel this Raptors group can find some kind of magic and beat the Cavs?
I mean, if they can't, then why do we even watch sports? And why is it such a big part of all our lives up here? Of course they can. UConn women's basketball, not to bring college, can they lose? Yes, they can. Why are we sitting here talking about it if they can't do it? However, I got my calculator out and actually did the rest this morning, or the math this morning. Cleveland has over 100 hours of rest on Toronto, and that's going to be huge to go on the road and compete with a team who is poised, who is veterans. It'd be different if it was Milwaukee or if it was October, but it is.
Sometimes those teams come out rusty.
Can I just address the numbers on the board? The numbers on the board we're currently looking at, they look even. They look even, except when you look at wins and losses. And a lot of these games came down to the Raptors couldn't hang.
Yeah, but that last game, the 4th game that the Raptors won, none of the Cleveland Big 3 played.
Yes.
Like you
So
really,
you think it should be 4-0?
You have to throw that game out when you're looking 100%. At the head-to-head statistics. But you can make the argument about the rest being good for them, but sometimes too much rest, these teams come out rusty.
If it was other teams, I would say that would be more of an issue. But Cleveland, this is what they do. They rest late season so that when playoff time comes.
What would you say about a team that had the lowest margin in a 4-game sweep in NBA history? What would you say about that kind of a team?
Maybe that's what they need to kind of re-snap into that business.
I thought the Pacers were better.
There are vulnerabilities to the Cavaliers.
Absolutely.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I work for the Raptors. I'm a homer. Don't take what I say and go to Vegas and bet money on it. But the Cavaliers
Thank you for that much needed warning, though. By the way, that was
you've been warned. They're vulnerable. They look like they can be beat. At some point, LeBron is going to lose. At some point.
Yeah, wait. Let me throw a couple other things in here because we're talking about LeBron a lot. Let's talk about these Raptors. I think you talk about LeBron, but let's talk about the guy for the Raptors. We'll eventually get to Norman Powell, who is key. But Kyle Lowry, there are concerns about his health. His back. He had 21 games off, came back, and played nuts in the final 4 games of the regular season, but there's been a dip, Kayla.
Right. But at the same time, at this point in the season, who's at 100% right now, right? Everyone is battling with some kind of injury at this point, but that's what makes the difference between who goes home and who's going to eventually be crowned a champion. You have to push through those things to a certain extent.
I will say this, though, and I had a career-ending back injury. Backs are different. They affect your arms, they affect your hips, your legs. It's a whole body thing. So I agree with you 100% in that you have to push through that in professional athletes. But when you do see him kind of limping around and walking around, it's not just, oh, I'm in pain. It's every movement I make is in pain. And he's taking charges. And he's doing those things still, which is great. But he's also a human being.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time. We can't talk about Norman Powell. I know a lot of the Powell fans are upset about this. They're going to treat me like they do Dwayne Casey, but don't. Lots more Raptors talk to come through this, hopefully, long playoff push that's left ahead of us. Meanwhile, back in Mississauga, the Raptors 905 took home Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment's very first championship. Shouts out to head coach Jerry Stackhouse, my guy Brady Haslip, the Scarborough native Negus Webster Chan, and the MVP Pascal Siakam. We'll be back with more of Canada's Home for Hoops after the break. This is Hang Out!